Hi guys, and welcome to Halifax Hear. My name is Gina Harnish.
I'm Adam Cooper.
Halifax Hear is a My Halifax weekly podcast where we upload every Friday right here to our YouTube channel. We talk about things happening in Halifax, answer questions, and talk about things we thought you might like to talk about. So let's get into it. First episode we'll be talking about immigration and what it's like to immigrate to another country. I've lived in Canada my whole life, so I don't really know what that's like, but Adam and I had talked about it before, and we thought it would make a good episode for people who don't know or who might find it interesting. So Adam, you immigrated here 9 years ago?
Yeah, so I mean officially I would have moved here I was land immigrant in 2008, but I moved here full time in 2010.
And so what was that initial process like?
It's hard because I mean it was a long process in terms of like I'd have been an early teenager, or maybe even been as young as 10 when my parents originally started. And just because of like my dad's job, it wasn't considered a skilled job in the sense, I mean he's a chartered accountant, but that wasn't on the list of jobs that Canada was in need of, so that's why, even though it is skilled, it wasn't under their skilled job list, so it took a lot longer. So for a lot of that kind of initial experience, I don't really have much memory of it other than kind of feeling like, oh, this is exciting because I'm going to go to that place that's full of snow and mooses.
So you were more excited than scared or nervous?
Yeah, and I mean, I think if I look back at it now, I'd probably say that I was a little bit naive because there were probably things that I should have probably thought about and been more prepared about. I was just thinking like, this is an adventure, Even when I came here, I'd been in my early 20s, and I was still like so excited to be doing it.
Mm-hmm. So did you know that much about Canada, or?
Surprisingly little.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we originally, during when we were kind of doing like a fact-finding point, well, not point, kind of like exploration. We did a week in Toronto and a week in Halifax, and you end up doing by default the touristy stuff.
Yeah.
So other than what I had seen on the TV show Due South, which I recommend everyone watches, and those two trips, I didn't know much.
Mm. And you came here with your whole family?
Yeah, I mean, we applied as a family because of the age. We'd have been like, I'm a twin, and my older brother's only 2 years older than us, so we'd have been like, I'd say early teens at best. So my parents had set it up for all of us to be there. But again, I think I would just turn 21, which we might have been 23. So I came across to my dad first, and then my mum and my twin brother came, and my elder brother came just after a year after.
And so was Nova Scotia your first choice, or did you go and visit other cities to scout out?
Really, it was. I mean, we did a lot of research back in England, and really it came down to doing some research on coming visiting Toronto and coming visiting Halifax. And Toronto was great, and Halifax kind of, in a weird way, stole our heart, for lack of a better term.
What about it made you?
Well, it's going to sound really, really weird, but we did a week in Toronto, and there's tons of stuff you can do, and it was really busy, and it kind of reminded me like how London is, or how like any of the big cities that we have in England are. When we got to Halifax, we landed in the airport, and the airport was under construction at this time. So we got off the plane, and there was like this plywood like board to this like corridor of just like concrete, and there was just like all these people standing crowded around. It was cold and it was foggy, and I remember thinking like, no way. And then when my dad got a hire car and we were driving along, and we came over the McDonald Bridge, and I remember seeing downtown Halifax and being like, wow,
yeah, what
a pretty place.
Yeah.
And then after some exploring, it felt like home, but just more North American.
Mm.
And that was it.
Yeah, I find with Halifax you get a bit of the city, a bit of the ocean, a bit of the countryside, so it's a nice little balance.
It is really well balanced, and like I say, it's like, you know, it's got that kind of big city feel, but at the same time a small community. And I think that's really important to me anyway.
So what were your plans for when you got here?
And again, maybe I was a bit of a dreamer, but like I really wanted to be a cop, and I was trying to be a cop in England. And then when I came to Halifax, so even when I was in Toronto, I went to the RCMP headquarters to ask what it took to apply. So I desperately wanted to be a cop. That did not come close to working out, but that was the kind of my whole plan was to go to Canada to be a cop. I wanted to be a mountain.
And so what were your last few days in the UK like?
That was kind of, I mean, it was so busy because so much had to happen because for us, we had sold a house my parents had built. We were staying in a friend's of my parents' place that they had just had renovated, and during that, like, it was maybe a month, I think, and then we were basically moving everything to one house and then pack it to go. And because me and my dad were coming out here first, I just felt like those last 3 days was rushed. The day before I got on the plane, I remember sitting there and feeling like, you know, so much was happening, and I went out for dinner. Simon and I, my twin brother, we went out for dinner with our friends because we were obviously being the same age. We had a tight circle of friends, and it wasn't until I said those goodbyes I was like, whoa, I'm never going to see these people again.
Yeah.
And that was when it kind of hit me. So it was so much happened, and I don't think I mentally or emotionally had time to really prepare for it until I got to Canada.
Well, I don't think you really can prepare for that. I mean,
no,
unless you actually experience it.
No, I mean, think if you're like a military kid and you move around a lot, you might be more prepared for it. But because especially for me, it was just so much excitement. I never thought of that. I never thought what's going to be negative, and that was a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that it was one of the longest goodbyes.
Yeah.
That night.
Yeah, it was because because we'd always gone out and had meals like that before, but then it kind of dawned on everyone at different times. Adam's like, well, Ad's not going to be here anymore, and it just kept being like round of hugs, round of hugs, round of hugs, round of hugs, and then there was like late night phone calls to the people that you're like, okay, I need to say goodbye to you again because I'm not going to be able to do this again.
Yeah. So when you got here, did you experience any culture shock at all?
Yeah, in a weird way, and a lot of people, when I say this, they kind of tilt their head like, what? But I mean, for me, I feel because in many ways, Canada and England, they're very, very similar. Probably because being a Commonwealth country, and like Parliament's the same, and a lot of things, they are the same design, and the language is the same. It's that 15-20% is different. That's really hard to get past, because little things like I still, will say things like potato, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's not potato," or tomato, and it's tomato, and it's things like that, and you constantly kind of like these little things are popped up in front of you, like you're not from here, you're not from here, or this is different, and it's kind of hard to get past this. So it's not really a culture shock. It's just a case of like, it's like wearing a pair of shoes that's slightly too big. Like they kind of fit, but then they kind of don't. And that was more difficult than I think it would have been if I'd gone somewhere like in Europe where it was like Spain. I had to learn a new language. I had to learn a new culture. It's like I said, it was like almost wearing a suit or a piece of clothing that just doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, because I mean we speak the same language.
Yeah.
But there's those small differences that make a big difference.
Well, even now, like we've been together for 4 years, I'll still say stuff to you, and you'll be like, "What?"
Yeah.
And
but I'm catching on.
Yeah.
So were there any similarities?
A lot of it was very similar. I mean, the best example I can give you is like we drive on the opposite side of the road. I figured that out like that because it was such a shock to me. But there's a lot of things like even like voting and the laws, the cultures, the holidays are pretty much the same, except you guys have Thanksgiving and we don't. So there's a lot of things like that are ingrained in the community that are very similar to how they were in England. In fact, a lot of it reminds me of old English traditions because a lot of them have changed, and it kind of reminds me of the stuff that like my parents would talk about their parents doing, especially people who are like originally from Newfoundland because they are that little bit closer to having English ties. So there's a lot that was similar, but just slightly different.
And even Halloween isn't that big in the UK,
no.
Is it? Yeah.
Well, that's it. Like, I mean, even this year, I saw people giving out Halloween gift bags or gift box bags, like like a Christmas gift box. They're Halloween ones, and I was like, that would never happen in England. Like, I mean, I think now it's kind of caught on a little bit that they do Halloween parties when people dress up. But when I grew up, Halloween was for young kids, and that was it. But here it's like this huge deal.
Yeah.
And in the States, it's even bigger. This is crazy.
So were you homesick Did you want to go back immediately when you got here? Or?
I was very homesick, and I'd say in the first couple of days I struggled. And in my head, I actually came up with a plan where I'd save money through till October, and then I'd go back. I didn't tell anyone because I was like, oh no one can know. But I was about 3 weeks in, and we were having like a really good summer that year, and I was like, I can't. If I leave, I'm gonna regret it. And I knew that. I was missing my circle of friends. I was missing the people that I grew up with, and you can't replace that instantly. So it was a case of like, I'm not gonna go and do that because then I'm gonna end up being stuck somewhere and just being 50 or something, and be like, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to kind of get over that?
Probably, I'd say almost a year fully. It helped that I went out and I started working pretty soon, and I made friends there, and I kind of got people who would like take me around, and some of the guys I work with, they took me around Halifax and showed me some stuff. So that kind of helped because it felt like you weren't such a stranger. So once it felt more like this was my city, this was my home, this was my local grocery store. It's like finding those things that are the everyday things people take for granted. When you come somewhere new and you don't have them and you don't know where they are, that's when you start kind of missing what you used to have. So once you establish that, I would say, and I'd say for a lot of people who are immigrating or have people they're trying to bring into the city, those are things that you should get. Like people worry about jobs and schools, which are very, very important, but you got to think about those home comforts. Like for me, I like going to a coffee shop just to sit and like kind of like chill out. When you don't have a good coffee shop to go to that kind of fits what you want, because it's different from sitting in a Starbucks to sitting in, like in Cafe and Coffee. I never say that. Cabin coffee. Cabin coffee. Like it's completely different feelings. So.
What else would you recommend to people going through something similar?
I think it was hard for us because we had such a big gap in terms of being able to actually get from being an immigrant, being at the start of the immigration process to getting here, that you have you don't really have mentally time to prepare for it because it's such a big gap. So if you're doing it and you've got less time, I would say focus on what is going to be the essentials straight out the gate. Like most people need somewhere to live, and then they need somewhere to get a job, and then they need somewhere to go to school or take their kids. But outside of that, you still got to live a life. So, if you are an avid gym person, then make sure you know how close the gym is. If you are someone that walks dogs, make sure you know where your local dog park is. And, the things that have made your life like for me, is like, I love comics and I love movies and I love cinema. So one of the first things that I did with my dad, and he was his idea, was he took me to the cinema. And we watched Toy Story 3 in IMAX, which is the first time I've been in IMAX as well. And I remember feeling like, okay, this is comfortable. Because that's like, back in England I had a membership. I paid $10 a month, or £10 a month. And me and my best friend Jason would go like every Saturday, and we'd watch 6 or 7 movies at a time because it was unlimited. So when I didn't have cinema anymore because I had no one to go with but myself, I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
So even early on, I used to go to cinema by myself, and it's just kind of doing that stuff and finding those things that make you kind of feel like you're at home.
So, and you actually got your citizenship last year?
2 years.
2 years. So congratulations.
Thank you. I was so proud to do that.
Yeah.
That was a big deal because it sounds funny, but like not doing jury duty and not being able to vote, that does make a difference because a lot of people I know don't vote or don't really in politics or something like that, but it's different when you are choosing not to vote or you are choosing to vote to you can't vote.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, again, you're segregated. I remember walking down the street and there was the mayoral election? Mayoral maybe a word, I don't know, but we were basically electing the mayor. And people were coming up to me and saying, who are you going to vote for? And I was like, well, actually, I can't vote. And they would turn and walk away. And I was like, oh, I don't even get a goodbye anymore.
So how would you describe these last 9 years?
It's been the best thing I ever did. It had its challenges, and there was things that I think more so I was naive, just because I just assumed everything would just fall into place. But I have an amazing lifestyle. I have a really, really good job. I got to meet you, which is the smartest thing I ever did. And we get to do things like my Halifax, and all this stuff happens because I'm in Canada. And Halifax is really safe. It's a really great community, and I feel really lucky to be here. And I'm so glad that I did it, and I'm really glad that I never left that the first October I was here.
Yeah.
So that was a good decision on my
I'm
part.
glad you didn't either.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I think we might wrap this up now. If anyone else has any other questions or things you want to know that we didn't cover, let us know in the comments below of this video. Thank you, Adam, for sharing your experience with us.
You are welcome.
And we'll see you next time.
See you guys. So I think the camera may have cut off a little bit of the footage because it's DSLR and it stops recording after 20 minutes, but we still have the audio. But I promise we'll get that right next time.
So thank you for listening to this episode of Halifax Hear. Next week's episode, we'll be talking about why we started our My Halifax blog on our YouTube channel. So tune in next week. You can find us right here on our YouTube channel at My Halifax. Also, we're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So don't forget to follow us on all our social media. And thanks again for listening, and have a great weekend.